this video, we're going to start out by looking at a video that was produced by the site called Learn Biology that goes over the control and independent and dependent variable groups. Afterwards, we'll recap and then we'll go over some questions on test your knowledge.
When scientists set up an experiment, the way that they test their hypothesis is by having a variable. And so let's just start off with an example hypothesis. Let's say that I think that my houseplant will grow more if I give it a half cup of energy drink every day. In my experiment, I will have one houseplant where nothing changes. So both of these houseplants will be exactly the same temperature, and they'll get the same amount of sunlight, but there'll be one difference, and that is called a variable. And so this plant over here would be the variable group, and this plant over here will be the control group. And the one thing that we're going to change in this experiment is I'm going to see if giving my plant a half a cup of energy drink every day will make it grow more. So here's my energy drink can, and there's some energy drink. The energy drink that we are giving to this plant, we would call the independent variable, because that's the variable that we're controlling. Independent. The independent variable. And the dependent variable in this case is the plant's growth. So let's just say growth. I'll switch colors here. All right, so the dependent variable is how much the plant is growing. Growth. All right, so there you have it. We have a control group where nothing has changed, a variable group where we're only changing one thing, the energy drink. The energy drink itself is called the independent variable because the independent variable is something that the scientist is controlling. And the dependent variable, how much the plant grows, is called the dependent variable because it depends on the independent variable, or the energy drink.
So as a recap, whenever you're doing experiments, they're designed to remove or alter only a single variable at a time, which the investigator thinks is the essential part of the phenomenon. In the last video, he was testing to see if energy drinks were going to cause the plants to grow better than not receiving energy drinks. So the single variable is the energy drink. And a variable is any factor that can be changed or measured in an experiment. I also went over independent and dependent variables. Remember, the independent variable is controlled by the experimenter. It's a variable that is altered or removed. It's what the experimenter, the researcher, thinks is going to cause a change. Well, what is that change? Well, the change is going to be the dependent variable. That's the response to the change due to the independent variable. So the dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. Dependent variables are the measurements collected in the experiment. And the value of the dependent variable, literally, as I said, depends upon the value of the independent variable. In the previous video, we saw how it was the size of the plant that was the dependent variable, based on the energy drink. Is the energy drink going to cause a plant to be bigger or smaller or stunt its growth? Another example. Let's say you're an experimenter, you're a researcher, and you wanted to see if an increased level of dietary saturated fatty acids would cause an increased level of serum cholesterol. So the dietary intake of the saturated fats would be the independent variable because that's what the researcher is changing. And then the level of cholesterol in the individuals who are receiving those saturated fats would be the dependent variable. Well, whenever you're running an experiment, you absolutely have to have a control group. And a control group is a duplicate of the experimental group in every aspect, except that the independent variable isn't changed. So the example in the previous video, it showed a control group plants. These plants did not receive the energy drink. And so you'll look at their height compared to the plants that received the energy drink to see if there's any difference. So the purpose of the control group is to ensure that any observed changes are due to the manipulated variable and not to changes in some other variable. So previously we talked about the experiment to see if increased levels of dietary saturated fatty acids would cause an increased level of serum cholesterol. As I said, the dietary intake of saturated fats would be the independent variable, and the serum cholesterol level would be the dependent variable. What would be the control group? Think about that for a moment. So the control group would be a group of individuals, and you'd want them to be around the same age, gender, weight. That does not have an increased level of dietary saturated fats. Let's go ahead and pause your video. Test your knowledge on independent and dependent variables. Here are the correct answers. Let's test your knowledge, pause your video, and answer the following questions. Here are the answers. Let's test your knowledge. Go ahead and design an experiment to see if eating 1 pound of peaches a day helps lower cholesterol. Explain what the experimental group would be, your control group, independent variable, and dependent variable. Here are the answers. Let's check your understanding. Go ahead and pause your video. Design an experiment to see if drinking 100 milligrams of vitamin C lowers blood pressure in women 40 to 50 years of age. Here are the answers. Check your understanding. Design an experiment to see if rubbing olive oil on the scalp increases hair growth of bald men. Here are the answers. If you have any questions at all on the control group, the independent and dependent variables, please let me know. This concludes the video.